Hey everyone, have you noticed how easy it is these days to get a match, set up a date, but also how quickly things turn into swiping left? We're flooded with instant connections, but why so much anxiety and so many short-lived relationships? In today's video, we'll dive into Zygmunt Bauman's Liquid Love to understand how liquid modernity shapes our way of loving and breaking hearts. Stick with me, I promise it'll be eye-opening. First published in 2003 by Polity Press and in Brazil in 2004 by Jorge Zahar Editor, Liquid Love comes to us translated by Carlos Alberto Medeiros. In it, sociologist Zygmunt Bauman expands on the concept of liquid modernity, a landscape where everything molds, transforms, and dissolves rapidly, including our affections. Across 4 chapters, falling in and out of love, inside and outside the toolbox of sociability, on the difficulty of loving thy neighbor, and collapsed coexistence, Bauman shows how haste, individualism, and consumerism turn love into a shallow, insecure bond. Get ready to rethink how you love and are loved. Let's start with the first chapter, whose title says it all, Falling in and Out of Love. Bauman opens the text with an epigraph from Charles Baudelaire. Cut it into pieces, and you'll find each fragment has a life of its own. This imagery of fragmentation sums up how we experience love today. In loose pieces, we can assemble or discard as convenient. Have you ever tried learning something the exact same way a second time? With love, that's impossible. Bauman notes that unlike mechanical skills, there's no way to get it right next time when it comes to a unique, unrepeatable event, be it death or love. Yet more and more people pride themselves on being prone to falling in love repeatedly. The romantic notion of love as till death do us part is outdated. It's expired in the face of relational liquidity. Instead of a few grand passions, we're living through a boom of intense episodes, each testing our emotional fragility. But there's a dangerous illusion. We think practice makes us love experts. Bauman challenges this practice might actually cultivate a trained incapacity to love, turning us into emotional Don Giovannis, always ready to chase the next conquest before the current one takes root. In the end, what should be life's greatest risk, surrendering your heart, becomes a liquid skill, easy to start, easy to end, but increasingly costly to our ability to trust. And in Chapter 2, Bauman uses the metaphor of the toolbox of sociability to show how we've learned, often unconsciously, to interact by following instruction manuals, packaged advice from experts, relationship guides, and instant tips. First, he warns that the triumph of consumerist markets has turned others into objects of pleasure or disposal. We no longer see people for their uniqueness, but for their monetary value and the sensations they provide. In this process, human solidarity becomes the first casualty. We judge others by immediate gains, not mutual care. The most strategic victory of this system, crumbling our sociability skills. Bauman highlights that instead of acting spontaneously and responsibly, we switch to agentic mode, obeying explicit or subliminal instructions, driven by fear of mistakes and the desire to follow the right recipe. We buy pre-packaged solutions that exempt us from building genuine empathy. Just apply the model and hope it works. In practice, relying too much on standardized advice strips us of autonomy to handle the unpredictability of real coexistence. Thus, the toolbox meant to unite us ends up reinforcing the liquidity of the bonds that matter most. In Chapter 3, Bauman cuts to the chase. Loving thy neighbor is nearly impossible today. He starts with a powerful provocation, the classic command, love thy neighbor as thyself. Sounds beautiful, right? But Bauman asks, does this even make sense in a world driven by self-interest and rational calculation? Think about it. Why should I love a stranger? What's the logic in caring for someone who might never reciprocate? According to Bauman, this idea of unconditional love clashes with the pragmatic mindset of liquid modernity, where nearly everything is judged by utility, return, or benefit. But that's precisely the challenge. Loving thy neighbor isn't about logic. It's a moral choice. It's an act of faith requiring courage to step outside the comfort zone of the self and recognize the dignity of the other, even when they're strange, distant, or different. Bauman invites us to rethink love as an ethical practice, not an emotion. Loving thy neighbor isn't a feeling, but a commitment to the humanity in every person. And it's this kind of love, harder, riskier, that can restore our fragile bonds. But choosing this path in liquid modernity means swimming against the tide. The world doesn't encourage us to love. It trains us to compete, compare, and distrust. That's why loving thy neighbor has become an act of resistance. In the 4th and final chapter, Bauman closes with an alarming vision, the collapse of human coexistence. If earlier chapters discussed love and individualism, here he shows how fear has become the core ingredient of social relations. Fear of the other, the stranger, the different. We're surrounded by distrust. Instead of community bonds, we have walls, real and symbolic. Gated windows, closed condos, militarized borders, exclusionary policies. The neighbor becomes a threat, not someone to share the world with. Bauman condemns how this mentality is rooted in today's politics. The figure of the outsider, immigrant, poor, or simply different becomes the perfect scapegoat onto whom we project our fears and frustrations. This justifies all forms of separation, from deportation to everyday indifference. The result, solidarity becomes a luxury. The we fades, replaced by a crowd of armed eyes against everyone else. Coexistence, the foundation of any society, is eroded by the logic of distrust and privatized security. Thus, Bauman argues that love's true enemy isn't hate, it's fear. And where fear reigns, love and coexistence simply cannot thrive. Now that we've covered all 4 chapters, the inevitable question, is Bauman right? Yes, for many reasons. First, he nails the focus. Talking about love today means addressing what we miss most. In a world of quick connections, he reminds us that the real challenge is building deep, lasting bonds. Bauman's text is fragmented and essayistic, which may seem disorganized to some, but this is intentional. It mirrors the liquidity of modern life. Instead of rigid structure, we get reflections that fit like loose pieces of an existential puzzle. And what powerful imagery he uses: love as a pocket-sized relationship, disposable connections like an emotional shopping mall, or the delete key symbolizing a virtual breakup. This makes us see ourselves in his words. However, Bauman doesn't offer concrete solutions, no magic formulas, which might frustrate those seeking quick fixes. His strength lies in holding up a mirror. Instead of teaching us to love, he shows why we've forgotten how, and he urgently invites us to relearn together. Looking closely at Liquid Love, we see Bauman doesn't just present ideas, he enacts his content through the text's form. First, the book is intentionally fragmented. Each chapter, paragraph, or even sentence functions as a standalone idea, mirroring the liquidity he critiques. The format simulates the liquid modern experience. Another standout feature is his provocative metaphors: relationships as mall products, love as a deletable connection. This makes the content sensory, almost visual. He also weaves rich intertextual references, from Plato to Italo Calvino, Freud to Catherine Jarvie. This blends sociology with philosophy, psychology, and pop culture. In short, Bauman doesn't just explain the fragility of human bonds, he makes readers feel it through his writing, a rare balance of content, form, and experience. After all this, it's clear. Liquid Love isn't just a book about relationships, it's a mirror of our time. Bauman shows that in a fast, disposable, fear-driven world, loving has become an act of courage. If we want stronger bonds, we must nurture patience, surrender, and commitment. Love can't be lived like a consumer product. It takes work. It demands presence. If this video made you think, hit like, share it with someone you love or want to love better, and subscribe for more reflections like this. Drop a comment. How do you navigate loving in this liquid modernity? Let's exchange ideas and strengthen bonds, even virtual ones. See you next time.